Hi, I'm Joanna. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to review 4 books, 3 fiction, 1 nonfiction. Let's get started. My first novel is Homebound by Portia, Elan. This is a sci-fi book. There are 3 individual stories in this book. They span from about 600 years or so. And I had a little bit of trouble connecting the 3 together, but I think the best I can come up with is that there's a strong emphasis on what it's like to be a conscientious human. Yoseko is the main character in the future story, and that's about 2586 or so, and it is kind of a bleak future for her because she is a captain of a ship and she just strives very hard to survive. But there are robots. They're very common because one is an essential part of her crew. The story jumps to another timeline where we meet a professor who is working on biotechnology. The storyline that I liked the most was the 1980 era. In that storyline, a young girl named Beck is coming to terms with her identity and being okay with who she is. And it parallels with this video game that has a narrative of what it means to be human. So in the story, Beck's favorite person in the whole world, her uncle, dies and leaves her an unfinished video game he was creating. She finishes coding the game, and I really liked being in the game while she was doing that. It was so fun. The author says that the game links the other 2 stories or 3 stories together. I wish I would have known that because it would have helped me find some continuity. Okay, I listened to this book on audio, but I'm kind of torn because I think it's best to actually read parts of this book. However, I also enjoyed following the robotic voice on the audio when I was in the game with Beck. I read the reviews on this book as well, and some said that it's similar to Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin, and I don't agree with that. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow was a 5-star book. Because this book was a bit harder for me to follow, I give it 3.5 stars. However, I think my younger self may give it a higher score. Novel number 2, Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. In this novel, Theo is an older gent, about 84 or so, and he's quite an enigma until the last few chapters of the book. He comes to a small town in Georgia called Golden, and he rents the Ponder House, and it's a beautiful restored brick building with miraculous views. So Theo enters into this cafe, and it's called the Chalice, and he meets the owner, Tony. And in the cafe, the walls are lined with paintings and beautiful art. And Theo inquires about them, and then he makes a proposal. He proposes to buy each painting, and behind the painting there is a name behind it, and he wants to find that person whose the name is behind the painting and gift them the painting. So he does that. So in this way, the reader actually gets to know a little bit about the character, their tragedies, their altering life experiences, etc. And we learn this not only by what the painting expresses, but also by the conversation Theo has with them. There's a few characters that are my favorite. There's this one Ellen character, and she's trying to get Theo to ride a bike. And because he's so old, she says, remember, motion is lotion, motion is lotion. He's got so many wonderful little cute sayings in the book. He's such a fantastic writer. This is a feel-good story. It kind of reminds me of Nicholas Sparks, but much more intense. I suspect that the Nicholas Sparks fans are going to gobble this up. No spoilers here, but please pay attention to the first part of the book because the end makes much more sense. Some reviews say that this is a little too mushy, too sweet, too religious, etc. There are good people out there, and sometimes we're lucky enough to meet them. This is the author's debut novel, and his prose is masterful. This is an exceptionally beautifully written book, and the storyline is very sweet. I give this 5 stars. Novel number 3, Whistler by Ann Patchett. I appreciate and adore this author's work. I am always so impressed with her. She is a beloved author and very likable everywhere. Her current book, Whistler, is a family story. It's about a mother and 2 daughters, Daphne and her sister. So the daughters love their stepfather, Eddie, from the mother's second marriage. Even though the marriage does not last, Eddie he remains a seminal part in Daphne's life, specifically throughout her life. Then years and years go by, and then by chance, Daphne meets Eddie. That begins to unravel these deep emotional memories and some wounds that had not or remained unattended to in her and also within her family. And these suppressed emotions, they just begin to surface throughout the novel, and then the reader understands why the characters behave the way they do. That's the plot. It's a good storyline, as one would expect from this author. Her prose is lovely, and she's got so many great lines in this book. However, and this pains me to say this because I am such a fan, and this book is so well received, but I actually got bored while reading this. I fought to finish it. I was just not moved by the characters. And while the chapters summed up nicely in the end, they answered all questions and it was a satisfying closing, I lost my curiosity. Maybe because I just finished Theo of Golden, that particular book had so much depth to it. It may have influenced this reading. I don't know. I give this 3 stars. Book number 4, my nonfiction book, When Time Stopped, a memoir of my father's war and what remains, by Ariana, Neumann. So in this book, the author's father dies, and he leaves her a box containing unexpected keepsakes like old letters, documents and objects, etc. And it's all relating to his past during the Holocaust. She takes a deep dive into this and researches her father's family's past. It reveals so much about the beginning of World War II, and it includes the unimaginable horrors that her family members endured. So, as usual, it's so difficult to make any kind of sense in how we, see humans inflicting these horrors on other humans. That being said, we also get some, beautiful stories intertwined with these horrors, and just marvel that, that can happen as we live or as they lived among such evil. There are many incredible stories that took place during this era, this horrible time in our history. However, this particular story is shocking because her father, the author's father, lives incognito among the Nazis, works with them, as a Jew. It's a powerful personal story. However, the first few chapters, probably about a little more than a third of the book, is dry reading. But after that, it's just a fascinating story. I'm glad I stayed with it. It's a moving story, and it does prompt awareness about societies, even our society today, I think. I give this 4 stars.